let me be part of all the love you are. 'Cause angel, we can fly, you and I, ride a rainbow to the stars. So hold me all through the night, stay till the day is bright. And angel, don't ever break the spell, 'cause you're the star of the story I'll always tell. Used to say yesterday love was only in a dream, but angel, I was wrong all along. Just took you to make me see. So hold me all through the night, stay till the day is bright. And angel, don't ever break the spell, 'cause you're the star of a story I love so well. Is bright. And angel, don't ever break the spell, 'cause you're the star of the story I'll always tell. 'Cause you're the star of the story I love so well.
Good evening, I am Paul Niven. That song was written about last year's Watts riots in California, but his protest was directed not so much against race discrimination as against the urban poverty in which millions of Americans, black and white, dwell. More than 2 years have passed since Lyndon Johnson declared war on poverty, and more than $2 billion have been spent. We still don't know as much as we need to know about who the poor are, but we do know more than we ever did before. We know, for example, that 1 American in 6 is poor, about 32 million. Of them, fewer than a quarter are on public assistance. In fact, more than half have an employed breadwinner in the home. We know that 1 Negro in 2 is poor, but we also know that for every poor Negro, there are 4 poor whites. In fact, in many respects, a person's chances of being poor are predetermined. Michael Harrington, whose writing has done a good deal to shape the poverty program, holds that people are not poor because they are lazy or incompetent. He says they are poor because they made the mistake of being born to the wrong parents. house in the wrong section of the country, or the wrong industry, or to the wrong racial or ethnic group. Those most in need are often the most difficult to locate and help. For them, poverty is not just a question of insufficiency of money. It is degradation, absence of motivation. From the time they are born, they do not have the things, or see the things, or learn the things, which for more fortunate children are the elementary experiences of childhood.
If I roll this buggy over a toe, I'm sitting here rocking this, trying to get him to sleep. How's he getting along?
These children are a jarring reminder that even in the richest society in the history of the world, some people are trapped at birth. Poverty worker Gail Pierce has been trying to help this family for 6 months. She talks with 17-year-old Jolene, who will soon have her own child.
We've been using canned milk on these babies, trying to save money. And we hadn't even been giving them sweet milk. We've been using carnation milk, trying to save money. But I know where the money went this week. Mom and Daddy went out Sunday morning, 7 o'clock, and told me to be back at 9 o'clock. Woke me up at 7 o'clock the same morning, told me to get upstairs, the kid, and then back at 9 o'clock this morning. And I said, okay, so I kept them. They come drag me in 12 o'clock at night.
Drinking?
Yeah, they both have been drinking. They didn't leave a penny here. That makes me so mad I could kill them both.
I'll get some food for you then.
We got a washing machine down in the basement. I don't know, the more you do for them, the more they want you to do. Show Gail your arm. It was swollen.
Come here, doll, baby. Let me see your arm.
It was swollen pretty bad this morning. Lay down.
Where does it hurt at now?
Up there. Be quiet.
Up there and down. Did the dog bite you up here, too?
You bit it
Huh?
twice. You bit it once yesterday.
Would you have to go to the doctor with me? Huh? You get ready next Tuesday, and I'll go with you to infant welfare with all these kids. And then we'll take her to the doctor today or tonight.
There are 9 children and 2 adults in this family. The newest baby is 4 months old. The mother is only 33. The father earns $75 a week, of which $35 goes for rent. What's left is hardly enough. But the family moves often, and since the last removal, the parents have not bothered to sign up for supplementary welfare payments. They don't bother very much about anything.
Ronnie, what's the matter, doll, baby?
Several of the children in this family could be in a poverty program, but the parents are lethargic. It's all Mrs. Pierce can do to get the kids to a clinic occasionally. The little girls normally stay in the apartment all day. They have no shoes, and if they played in the yard, someone would have to watch them. There are plenty of ragged clothes around, but nobody likes to wash clothes. The 6-year-old brother, to his family's surprise, insists on going to school every day, sometimes half naked, once wearing his mother's blouse. Another boy, 7, simply runs away every morning and returns, if at all, late at night in the custody of the police. He wanders all over Cook County.
And they found him in Oak Park? Was it Oak Park they found him in one time?
By Oak Park or Oak Forest or Park Forest or something like that.
And what'd they say?
Just brought him home. Told me to keep an eye on him. I told him, how could I?
He got smart about the house being dirty. I told him, would you come help clean it up?
Billy did?
No, that... Oh, was some policeman dressed in a suit and he said something about to keep the house clean, he wouldn't run off.
What do you want, honey? Brenda, tell Faye to come up here. I want to see her.
One generation of poor can pass its mores and its lack of motivation or ambition on to another. Jolene is like her mother, and Jolene's baby will probably be like Jolene. The eldest daughter in this family, 18-year-old Faye, is a mother already.
Well, hello there, Mommy. So how have you been?
You know anybody who can take
Doing good.
You can take me to the hospital?
The only one I can think of with a car is Matt, and if I can get a hold of him, he went to the doctor today.
I won't be able to see the baby, but I get
talk to the doctor.
No, you can go back. You're not going to live with that guy anymore. Very calm. Babysit for that and take care
I wish
of
you could
it.
see it.
You dirty
Cutest
boy.
little thing.
Yeah, if I can get me at the papers, we'll go and see them now.
You're a dirty boy. Wait just a minute. Now, what's the matter with
Well,
Mama?
then be ready Tuesday and we'll go up there, because it's the same thing. And have the kids washed and ready, and we can, between the three of us, my God, we should be able to handle 4 kids.
These 4.
Well, I'll just tie a rope around all of their middle.
These are different kids.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, no, darling. Scoot over now. Let me
But then we'll go.
So you don't cry. Let me sit down and get my picture taken so I'll be on television.
Get a chair, Johnny, before she won't have to.
Sit down there.
Well, and that's the only thing to do is just tell them and admit in court that you just can't handle the child, and that's all there is to it. Maybe
Yeah,
they
but
can
that
do
way, see,
something
they
with
seem to
him.
think we can't handle the rest of them. And the rest of them,
Gerald goes to school. All you gotta do is get that kid dressed, even if he
If
puts
you don't
dirty
get him
clothes
dressed.
on to go to school. Why are you trying to keep him home from school?
Gary hasn't got any clothes. We can't send him to school dirty and no clothes. He ain't got no underclothes. I want church yesterday.
Well, let's put it this way. Nobody but him and you are gonna know he hasn't got any underclothes
Well,
on.
that might be true, but
Leave it alone, Sam.
last week he slipped off, went to school. He had on one of Mama's blouses.
I gotta go. Have her ready tonight. I'll take her to the doctor. Okay? And be ready Tuesday. So if I walk all the way down here from the center Tuesday and you people aren't ready, you're going to hear hell raised, and I ain't kidding. There's going to be about 5 roofs flying off of these buildings.
2,000 years ago, Aristotle wrote of people coming together in cities to join in the good life. But for many living in 20th century American cities, life is not good at all. It is dirty and squalid and degrading. Yet the poor, along with others, keep moving to our big urban centers as they have been since the end of the war. Most are Southern Negroes, but not all. Others include Appalachian whites, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Indians. They come to the centers of our large cities, left vacant by middle-class whites who have fled to the suburbs, taking with them their jobs, their taxes, and their civic consciences. New construction and urban renewal have swept away vast areas, forcing the growing population of migrant poor into ever more crowded ghettos, increasingly isolated from the mobile segment of society. They are often bewildered by the city, nostalgic for the simpler, more rural life they left behind.
It's just not like home. I'm used to fishing and running across the field. They don't care if you about there.
I know.
That's right.
You have a park down the street.
Yeah, but not like that. I be catching them fish in a frame so long. Oh, we have fun. It's much fun now.
Now, really what she like a clean place. This place all filthy and everything. And, and it's just hard to make it here. That's what, if she can, had a decent job, her husband had a decent job, because she's not able to work, well, things probably won't be bad as they seem. But that's the reason she like she is. She really would rather stay here,
Oh, sure. I ain't never want to come here. Not to live. No, I ain't never had no dream of living here. That's that man I got what led me here.
Till you come up here, you find out different. But I like it, so far. Things
Well,
really
when I
haven't been
think
so
about
hard
this here
to
big
me.
old ragged nasty town, when I think about it, it's not for no old person like me. This here place is for fast life people. People don't care nothing about nothing but a ball and a jank. It's not for me.
Yeah, you have more freedom
Yeah,
and everything, but
I
you
got
can't
my
use
freedom
it.
there. You know why? I was raised there. And whatever I do there amongst the white people, it's all right. They're nice to me. I ain't like a whole lot of people. They this and they that. They were very nice to me. And I like them. And I believe that they like me. Because anything I ask them for, they would give it to me. But, well, that's it.
In the city's slum, one misses that kindness, however paternalistic it may have been. The poor are afraid of one another, and with reason. The desperation of poverty breeds violence. The confusion of urban life breeds distrust of authority, whether it be the school principal, the welfare worker, or the policeman. It's a most unusual Negro child who wants to be a cop when he grows up. The child of the ghetto grows up living with violence and without security. He just gets used to one set of peeling walls when his family moves him to another. Eviction is commonplace. Loss of his and his family's possessions is routine. But his biggest fear is loss of a father. For growing up in a slum often means growing up without a father in the home. The tragic consequence of high unemployment is that men who cannot find jobs or who cannot support their families even with jobs often lose hope and leave home. Our slums are filled with jobless men. Some spend their days loitering, others drift in and out of inferior short-term jobs. At dawn every morning, somewhere in every city, men line up in the hope of getting one day's work. Some are skilled but barred from full-time employment because of discrimination. Others are unskilled and can hope for nothing better than menial odd jobs if they can find those. Yet throughout the nation, better-paying steady jobs go begging. In Chicago, there are about 100,000 jobs available and about the same number of unemployed. Unemployment and underemployment are the very roots of poverty, and thus the major targets of the poverty program. In Chicago, a neighborhood organization called Lawndale for Better Jobs has found work for hundreds. Started privately under Catholic auspices, now part of the city's official poverty program, it receives job applicants at its center, but also sends recruiters out to bring them in from the streets, the bars, and the pool halls.
Mr. Brown. Have a seat right there, please.
Thank you. Fine.
Now, Mr. Brown, tell me, what type of work do you want?
Well,
I mean, I know you've been farming, but quite possibly, I know on a farm you do more than, I don't know what you call it, you run the tractor. What did you do on the farm?
Well,
A little bit of everything?
a little bit of everything.
You present a slight problem. You are 62, and, there's not too many companies that want to hire anyone that old. Now, I will have to check.
Sure.
Now, I have two companies I think I can place you. One company is a janitor. Well, both companies are the janitor. They'll pay approximately $2 an hour.
Sure.
Could you, or would you, call me about 3 o'clock this afternoon?
Sure, I will.
More than likely want to see you in the morning. But you call me this afternoon. And when you call, I'll get your telephone number also. But I'll check these companies and we'll see what we can do with it as soon as possible. Okay? Thank you. Thank you for coming, and I'll look for your call this afternoon. How are you? Cup of coffee? Okay. You completed 2 years of high school?
I was in it.
Have you had any special training?
Special training?
Yeah. Nothing. You're not working now. You've been out of work 11 months? You've been doing our job for 11 months, but no steady employment. Now, I have... do you know anyone that's out of a job that has a car?
Probably not.
I mean, the reason I'm doing it, I would like to get you out here to a company we have out at 119th and Racine. They start you off at $238. You can make up to $6 an hour. It's a Ford shop, a Ford's plant. They have a training program, but you learn most of the time by, if a man is off or sick, you fill in for him while he's off. Now, if you'd like that, and if you know someone without a car and you can get him in here today, I could put you to work tomorrow.
But poverty has many facets, and it can't be eradicated merely by putting the jobless to work. Chicago's approach to the problem has been the opening of urban progress centers in the city's 7 worst poverty areas. This one, called Montrose, is in a white neighborhood. The others are in the Negro ghettos. They offer a multiplicity of services.
Good morning to you, little boy, little boy, little boy.
preschool classes have been among the most successful of the urban center's activities. And nationwide, Operation Head Start is the least criticized poverty program. Momentarily, at least, it has opened new horizons for hundreds of thousands of children. For some, it has meant their first chance to have playmates. For others, their first health check. Almost half the nation's poor are children.
When you put the sponge on this pink...
The purpose of Head Start is to raise the intelligence quotients and the horizons of poor youngsters to those of more privileged children. The hope is that the cycle of inherited deprivation can somehow be broken.
My name is Herbie, and Herbie is looking out of the window. I want to tell you what I do in my house. I live in a white house, and there is a big handle on the front door.
Usually, you know, the things that are outside come inside. And if it's right outside your door, it's going to come in or into anybody else's home. If you're not clean, then they're going to have bugs.
In the same building is another class for mothers, a course in home economics. The women are taught how to cook, how to buy things without getting built, how to take care of things once bought. In nearby rooms are employment offices, mental health clinics, welfare agencies, adult art classes. Thus, the urban centers offer a whole range of services for productive adults. For those who have completed their productive years, there's a recreation center.
They didn't get coffee. If you could get 4 cups.
The poverty program can enrich the life of a senior citizen merely by luring him out of his home, which may be a dismal, lonely boarding house. It's often difficult for the older person to move to a suburb or to another part of the city. A third of America's poor are old people, and their poverty is often the loneliest. The Progress Center seems to have made a contribution to its neighborhood merely by setting aside a couple of rooms where old people can find relaxation and companionship with dignity and without expense. At least half of all the federal poverty programs are oriented toward youth. The Job Corps, the Neighborhood Youth Corps, the Domestic Peace Corps. This boys' club gets teenagers off the streets and into group activities. For youngsters with special problems, it affords individual counseling.
Certainly, we can get him back into school, possibly by Monday morning.
El señor quiere saber, tienen que ir a ver al superintendente para que entonces ellos actúen, el boys club va a actuar para que el lunes tenga que regresar a la escuela. ¿Está de acuerdo?
But the Urban Progress Center reaches outward, too. It sends out every day about 30 community representatives, drawn from the poor, trained, and now paid to help their neighbors.
What should I do? Yesterday, I found a house that has been condemned.
Some community representatives are mere time servers. Some are people of extraordinary dedication. They know the people they're serving, and they serve them without patronizing them and without being taken in by them.
All right, so split up each one of you. Just go separately first. Take the door. Yeah. All right,
The official poverty workers are a remarkable new breed of civil servant. But they are not the only people out on the streets looking for the poor. Also caught up in the search are agents for many private groups.
work for Dr. Martin Luther King.
Well, look, I'm sleeping. I got to go to work in a little hour.
You do? Is there anybody else that's at home right now?
Oh, ain't nobody else?
There isn't. Okay, well, we'll be back.
This is Charlie Love, an organizer for the Union to End Slums, the group which brought Dr. King to Chicago. As poverty has become the #1 domestic issue, so it has also become the #1 civil rights cause. In general, the Negro is now assured of the rudiments of freedom. He now seeks to move beyond legal equality and achieve that practical equality which will give him an escape route from the ghetto. Scores of organizations seek his allegiance. Some work with the official poverty program, some oppose and scorn it.
What is your name? What's your name?
My name is Mrs. Williams.
Let's get that down here.
Yeah, see, we're trying to get some meetings together with the people in this building so we can deal with Epstein and some of the problems around here.
Well, just a minute, let me come down.
All right, you come on down.
The watchword of many of these private groups is organize. They claim that poverty officials don't see the problems of the poor as the poor themselves see them. So they gather slum dwellers in meetings, talk to them about common slum problems, and urge them to unite in pressuring the authorities for solutions.
I'm just going to talk about some of the forces that create a slum in our community. And a lot of people get offended when you say slum, but we have to realize that it's not just something that you can see in a community, it's things that you can't see that make that slum. And Jimmy was singing songs about housing and education. And for a good example, on education, we take Marshall High School. There's 5,000 students at Marshall right now, when there's only supposed to be 2,000. When this community 10 years ago was white, you can believe that it was kept up, see. But when we moved in here, we couldn't even get a loan from FHA, from anybody. As far as the people are concerned, downtown or anywhere else, this is a dead community. This is a slum. There's nothing. And it's about time that we started letting them know that we're somebody and we got something to offer and we want things. And we have our welfare mothers that can't even have a phone, where some of the kids have heart conditions and they need a phone in their house. Where there's a mother I talked to in the next block, she hasn't got any furniture in her house. And they told her that she'd have to work that out herself. And they told the lady downstairs, and her daughter's the one with the heart condition, that she couldn't have a phone, that she was on her way out. She was too old. And especially not to be a human being. You can't have any friends because then you're being too much of a human being and you're too old for that. So you just better just sit in that house and do whatever you can. Where we try to go to the store and we get the food from the suburbs that they don't want, see? And we have to pay 20% more for our food. See, and what he'll tell you is that, look, you go somewhere else. See, you don't have to come here because you just don't have to come here. No respect at all. And we've been sitting back and we've been complaining to a friend. I want to do something about this. But we don't do anything. We just talk. We could tell you some good talkers. So we got to do something about these problems. And the only way we can do something about it is to be together. See? And we're going to be together. We're going to get something done here, not only in East Garfield Park, not only in Lawndale, not only in Chicago, but we're going to get things done in New York, California, every state we got. We're going to have something done. See?
Here's a song I wrote about what happened in the Watts area of Los Angeles. A song called Burn Baby Burn, which was the theme song of the people who tried to burn down the town. Now, we don't advocate the burning down of a town to solve problems, but this song tries to tell some of the reasons why we think that people went to such extremes to try to deal with problems of inadequate education, unemployment, indecent housing, and so forth. Middle of the summer, bitten by flies and fleas, sitting in a crowded apartment, about 110 degrees. I went outside, the middle of the night. All I had was a bat in my hand, but I wanted to fight, so I said, burn, baby, burn, burn, baby, burn. Nowhere to be and no one to see, and nowhere to turn. Burn, baby, burn. Call President Johnson on the phone. Said secretary said he wasn't there. I tried to get in touch with Mr. Humphrey, but they couldn't find him anywhere. I went into the courtroom with my poor sad face. I didn't have no money, didn't have no lawyer, they wouldn't plead my case. So I said, burn, baby, burn. Burn, baby, burn. Nowhere to be and no one to see. And now, nowhere to turn. Burn, baby, burn. I really want a decent education. I really want a decent job now. I really want some decent opportunity. I really want a decent place to stay now. I want to live like everybody else now. I want to live.
I drove through Watts with Jim McClellan, a young Negro who grew up in an urban ghetto himself and who now works as a counselor among the troubled boys and girls of Watts, trying to get them off the street corners and into training and jobs. Jim, I think people in other parts of the country to whom Watts is just a name think of it as a big slum. This sure doesn't look like a slum. These houses look pretty good, aren't they?
Well, they look pretty good, but you can't always go by how the houses look on the outside. I think one of the things that has happened in the whole country is that people want to always equate poverty with squalor. In other words, if they see a trashy house, a person poorly dressed, this to them means poverty. And it's just not so. People take pride in their homes, but this doesn't mean that that they have money. They take pride in a car because it's available. They can go out and buy a car, $25 down. Some of these car lots will sell cars, especially to minority group members, because they can get their money out of it. They can come out and repossess the car if they can't pay on it, and a lot of this is done. The low incomes that come into most of the families, the instability of jobs, all add to the pressures and the many burdens that people have to live under in a city that they really shouldn't have to live under.
What does a child growing up in Watts not have that white children have in adjacent sections of town?
Well, I would say they don't have the hope, or they don't have the guidance or the assurance, really, that they will get certain things in life that most people in this country begin to expect that everyone should have, but really don't have. And the biggest thing I would say is opportunity.
And the atmosphere, I suppose, always influences the next generation. And it's a vicious circle in a sense, a self-generating.
Sure, the kids see their fathers not working, and their brother's getting out of high school, or a friend getting out of high school, and he can't find a job. Either he ends up getting into trouble or going into the army. This doesn't lead to much motivation, because they know once they get through high school, they're going to have to face the same thing that the kids that went through already. Take, for instance, the house I'm going to now. There are 9 people living in the house. There's no man. The mother tries to manage as best she can, but right now one of her sons is out of school. He's only 15 years old, and it's really tough to manage in these types of situations.
McClellan has been counseling a 16-year-old daughter in this family. She has been training in a neighborhood youth corps program. Now he hopes to move her out of the program into a productive job.
Brenda, what I dropped in to see you about was, you know, you've been in the NYC program over 6 months, and the program itself is set up so that you can begin to move out of the program after 6 months.
Why did you leave school in the first place?
Oh, well, I got suspended and for not liking to dress for gym. And on my suspension, I got pregnant and then I had my baby and I didn't go back to school.
I just don't know why they failed. I really don't. Because I tried to keep Brenda in school. I tried to talk to her. But her and the teachers couldn't get along because she didn't want to dress for gym. And then my son up here, they said, now he'd been up camp once, so he got out. So he started back up here at the Willowbrook Junior High. So they kept expelling him. So he was fighting, he was doing this, he was smoking, doing that, running with a gang, say that. So they had to suspend him for the whole semester.
Do you think one of the problems in a lot of homes is that there's no man in the house, there's no father around to help discipline them and influence them?
Well, I believe that's really a whole lot of fault because I know when my little girl's father was living, he was with me. Well, now, she went to school. She wouldn't ditch. All my kids, they went to school real nice. I didn't have a bit of trouble out of them. None whatsoever. Whatever he said, it went. But since he passed, I don't know. It seemed like I've been having trouble.
He died, did he?
Yes, he did. I'm 62. So I've been trying to raise these along by myself, and it's kind of hard.
How did you feel about school when you were there?
Well, school would have been all right, but I didn't have the things I needed, and we couldn't afford it, and I understood this. And so I just didn't want to go to school because if you go to school and you're not looking right, well, then you're going to get made fun at. See, although you are trying to learn, and you'll get tired of people making fun at you because you don't have what they have, and, so I just rather not went.
Lonnie, why do you think most of the guys drop out of school?
Most of them, they don't want to go. They don't want to, get no education or nothing like that.
Well, do they ever think presumably they want things, they want good clothes, they want cars and so forth. Don't they ever think that if they stayed in school longer, they'd have a better chance of getting those things?
No, because some of them think if they could drop out of school, they can run right to a car wash job, because that's the easy getting. All you got to do is go out there and put on a suit.
Most of them, when they drop out of school, the boys, they don't care anyway. They don't care if they work or not. Then if it's the girls, then they'll just keep making mistakes, and they'll grow up and they'll just expect to be taken care of for the rest of their life by the public assistance or something. Then after then, it's get to the point where they don't care about their future and they don't want anything in life but what they have.
I gather you think this is a pretty bad situation.
Yes, I do.
You're in Bureau of Public Assistance?
Yes, I am.
Do you have enough for everybody?
Well, I get 165 every 2 weeks.
Is that enough to feed 9 people and to live?
Well, my baby, now one of the kids' father, he passed soon, it'll be 4 years ago. She gets $38 from the Veteran Administration, then she get another check from the Social Security. It's $53.10.
So you think you make out all right?
Well, I do my best with it.
Do you see any changes in your life or any...
Well, I hope so, anyway.
Everything you know comes from somebody else.
Yes.
You learn it from your parents.
You
learn it from school. But yes, you know why they are rebellious? Because they have seen something else that they feel contradicts the statements of what they have heard somewhere else. So therefore, they say, well, I have been taught this, I see this, and I have been told this. What am I supposed to do?
These Los Angeles young people are taking part in a remarkable form of group therapy. For 2 afternoons with a counselor, they take part in so-called work orientation sessions before being placed in jobs in agencies of the county government. They are encouraged to talk frankly about their attitudes toward work, life, and the frustrations of being poor. They may not look it. American poverty is often well-dressed poverty, but these young people are indeed poor. Most of them are school dropouts. Many of the boys have been in serious trouble with the law. Many of the girls have had babies. A majority come from broken homes. One boy lives in a Salvation Army hostel on $22 a week. Another has been on his own since he was 14. According to the counselors, these young people tend to go into therapy skeptical and withdrawn. But one or two take the lead, others follow, and by the end of the second session, they're speaking their minds and their fears and frustrations, even when cameras are present.
Your own judgment. Regardless to how much you care about your mother and father, you're going to listen. You're going to try to do things to please them. But sooner or later, it's going to come to a point of time that you're going to have to do something for yourself.
John, what do you think about all this? Let's hear your point of view.
Well, I think she's right. Because people have to do things for themselves, you know. You listen at what they say and all this, but you have to have a mind of your own, you know.
Many of these youngsters not only witnessed last year's rioting and looting, but actually took part in it. Near the end of their therapy session, they began recalling the disturbances with a mixture of contrition, pride, and amusement. And they recalled that some of those who looted were merely helping themselves to things that they had long envied in store windows. Their motives were confused, and their memories are confused now.
You know, a lot of people got in it, didn't even know what they're fighting for. They just up there fighting. They just up there fighting. To me, on my part, I'll say this, and I'm a Negro. A lot of Negroes in the last riot was ignorant, just as well as Caucasian. I'm standing on Broadway. I hadn't even went in the store.
But you really didn't.
I'm standing in front of, I'll tell you where it was, the chicks. Because I feel like this. I got enough sense to stand back instead of getting myself caught in the store. Let somebody else open it. The door is open, I walk on into it.
So you thought the store was open?
No, I'm standing there waiting. It was open the door for her. I'm standing there waiting. Who comes down the street? The police. They didn't say one word, they just shooting. And God knows, I felt my first bullet. I felt the wind of it. I said, well, I got everything I think I want.
How come a Caucasian always spend the cash?
Because they have the money.
Oh, yeah, they got the money.
They said the Negroes were trying to be against the Caucasians, but this was not so, because I know I was pregnant during the time. I was right. My mother lived right on Central Avenue on 57, and I was right dead in the center of all of where they burned down there. And I was having to be crossing the street. The man almost ran over me, and I know I am a blood.
Yeah, well, you know why we had a ride? Because we needed it. You know, we needed that stuff. We got out that ride.
Well,
you know why? Because we ain't got nothing. And they got everything.
Wait a minute. When you have no reason to fight, you're not doing anything but making yourself look ignorant by hopping out there fighting and getting your little clubs and your little gangs and strutting down the street. What is that?
You got something out of it? I bet you got something out of it.
Honey.
They burned a lot of cars. All this is really unnecessary because we're no farther than what we were then. The clothes, the furniture, and all this stuff. I'll say that the reason the people did this and took this stuff out the stores, they seen a chance to have these nice things. They walked the streets a lot of days looking at these things and didn't have the money. They didn't have the money to buy it. Somebody said, well, gee, I sure wish I had that. If I had the money. And everybody seen, well, this is all going to take place. I have a chance to have it. They got it.
I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to do anything like that because where there's a will, there is a way.
There's a lot of people that have jumped off the freeway for thinking, trying to...
Where there's a will, there's a way. If you think negative, you cannot produce nothing but negative.
But the thing is, you have to look on both sides. Sure, there are some brave people that will keep on pushing, but there are others that after a little while, they're going to give up. And there's too many people that just quit, you know? I mean, some people you just
Take five.
can't make into. I mean, you know.
Okay, come on, let's break here. Come on, Dad, about your you're going to see a movie, so you can bring whatever you buy back with you.
Oh.
I have a hard time to give it down with you and I
No, this is true, though. Don't you feel the top of this message is better?
Bitterness and frustration which caused the Watts riots have not been entirely erased from those young minds, but at least those particular young people have been reached by the poverty program. They are headed toward the only real exits from poverty, which are training and employment. Some obviously will make it. Others will not. The boys will go on going in and out of jail, the girls bearing welfare babies. But the point is that if the poverty program helps only a small percentage of those it reaches, it may be economically sound. For the youth who becomes a tax-paying wage earner and responsible parent instead of a jail inmate is a double gain to society. But the various anti-poverty programs are not reaching all of the poor by any means. They are perhaps reaching 10 to 20%. Everybody in the programs agrees that they could do more if more money were available. Almost everybody in Washington agrees that more money will not be available because the President and the Congress are worried about Vietnam and inflation. The result is frustration among poor people who read big headlines, get their hopes up, and then do not receive help. Los Angeles Poverty Director Joseph Maldonado.
This goes back to the question of frustration. You know, in Los Angeles County, as I've said before, we have some 800,000 people in families with incomes of $4,000 or less a year. We estimate that we're serving some 200,000 through the various programs that are now in operation. So you can see very easily, you can find 600,000 people who say that they're not being helped a bit, and that's true. But let me give you another short figure to remind you of the problem, as I stated earlier, and that is the expectations of the poverty program. Our guideline in Title II for this county is $21 million. You could take that $21 million and put it in the curfew area alone and still come up with a lot of people that weren't being served. If you take the 800,000 people in this county and come up with programs at $100 a piece, which really is no program at all, you're then talking about $80 million a year. If you go to the next figure, which is more reasonable in terms of assistance in solving this problem, and come up with a $1,000 figure per person, you're talking about $800 million. So you see, this is where a good deal of the problem lies, and a good deal of the frustrations, and a good deal of the sincerity, and a good deal of the truth when people say that they're not being served.
In other words, anybody who isn't getting a benefit is tempted to follow the leadership which is criticizing the power structure.
Especially if they're not being served. And as I say, there are plenty of people in this county who are not being served by the poverty program. This is not to say that they're not receiving services from other agencies, because they probably are.
Across the nation, in offices, in bleak storefronts, and in the church which houses the Chicago headquarters of Dr. King, there are people ready to take up the cudgels for those whom officialdom has neglected, or those who can be persuaded that officialdom has neglected them. Some of the new militants are sincere and well-intentioned, others are not. Their function is to prick the official establishment.
Mrs. Mooney, please. This is Mr. Janis of the West Side Organization Welfare Union. I'm calling about Mr. Frank Sutton, ADCU case.
The private groups try to harass official agencies. They say that welfare departments are mean, bureaucratic, and slow. They say that police departments are brutal and discriminatory. They say that city housing authorities are in collusion with slum landlords. Sometimes the charges are valid, sometimes they aren't. But the gadfly groups do succeed in getting under official skins. Chicago Welfare Director Raymond Hilliard. Mr. Hilliard, in this as in other cities, many poor people seem to regard the welfare department, the schools, and the police as enemies. I realize that you are not an enemy of the recipients of welfare, but I wonder if you would accept that many of them do feel hostile to your department and to other city departments, and if so, why?
Well, this is a notion that is carefully fostered and foisted on people. Now, I can't speak for schools and police as intimately or as a result of so much experience as I can for welfare, But I know that our caseworkers over the past 30 years have been the only people who have lived with the poor daily, who have been in their homes, and the poor have been in our offices, and we have been in constant communion with them. I recall also that for many, many years, in fact all of these years up until maybe 2 years ago, the people of welfare were the only people who were on the side of the poor, who were, I would say, courageous enough, and sometimes it took courage, to speak out in behalf of the poor. It wasn't popular 3 years ago for me to say the poor are not lazy, and those of you who say that they are lazy are liars. Today we are taking the side of the poor against the exploiters of the poor, the self-anointed representatives of the poor, who proclaim that they speak for the poor, but they're speaking only for themselves, and they're using the poor.
But many of the private leaders of the poor, self-styled leaders of the poor, claim that the city departments are never going to be responsive because they are part of a power structure, that the fundamental changes which are needed threaten vested interests, which in turn are responsive to the political machines which
what
control.
These people are saying, Mr. Niven, are that the American system, the American democracy, the American republic must be destroyed. We have a constitutional system of electing officials and removing them when they fail us. We have a constitutional and statutory organization of the services of government. These are responsive to the people at election time. I do not believe for 1 second that anybody should set up a parallel system or should supplant this system. What I do believe is that wherever this system is less than perfect, and God knows it has a great many imperfections, it should be made to work. And one of the first places to start is in the General Assembly, the state legislature of every state.
But many of the new young militants are impatient with traditional political processes and with the entire poverty program. They want change. Radical, profound change. And they want it quickly.
Well, now, this is the whole thing. We keep it away from the street.
No, I mean, like, it's not, you know, the money belongs to the people. It's a poverty program. It's poverty money. And right now, the poverty program, to me, is stealing money from poor people. True. Giving the money back to the same qualified people that could go anywhere else and get a job. Or who should be able to go somewhere else and get a job.
The man on the right is Lester Miller, director of Project Action, a militant private group which is now financed in part by the very power structure it crusades against. Some young Negroes in Venice, California got together, scraped up a little money, and began helping one another find employment. They were so successful that the official Los Angeles Poverty Board began paying the salaries of Miller and 4 aides without taking over control of the project. Nonetheless, Miller agrees with a visiting friend that the whole poverty war should be conceived and run from the bottom, not from the top.
Because of your race, color, religion, sex, or national origin.
Suppose you go, you know, through your program, you can go get $1 million. But you get me $1 million that I can't even use like the people want it used. You get me $1 million tied up in administration. You get me $1 million tied up in professional workers, and no money coming down to the grassroots people in the community. So you can get me $1 million tied up just like the funds already tied up.
No, I'm not talking about that. That's what I came to talk to you about. You see, if the man's going to manipulate, it's not yours in the first place.
Right.
Now, who determines who's qualified? Who is the program for?
It's for the poor people, man.
If it's for the poor people and it is operated, manipulated, and the poor people don't operate and manipulate the money, then it's not the poor people's program, is it?
Man, Washington knows that.
Well, look, this is what I'm trying to say. Washington D.C. is only a part of. It's 1/3 of the structure.
Right.
So you got 2/3 working against the 1/3.
Well, what about L.A. City Hall?
L.A. City Hall? I tell you, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm going to evade completely. We're not going to go under L.A. We're not going to go up under county. We ain't going under none of these people. Understand? The only one that'll be having anything to do with us is Washington D.C. direct. And then we have a otherwise, you know, the way the powers of manipulation come, that political power and pressure is what influences our government today.
Man, don't you know that Lyndon Johnson knows that this money here is held up?
I know it. But see, Lyndon Johnson can't do nothing about it. But we can.
Well, that's what I want to talk about.
Lyndon Johnson can't do a thing about it.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk about, baby. I mean, like
this is what I'm telling you, see.
We don't enjoy doing the program this way. Look, we got guys right here on the way to work. We got guys here right now who know that this money is there. They know that their money is being held up, and they know it's there. They know that somebody's driving the life away, and they're tired of it. Now, as soon as somebody starts burning down buildings and, you know, knocking people in the head, then somebody's going to want to know what's wrong with them Negroes down there, you know.
Well, you see what you have to turn to the man and say, see, we know, just as you said, he knows what's wrong. He knows what's wrong with those Negroes down there. Now, whether he's going to do something about it is up to us. It's not up to him. You see, he's not going to do nothing without pressure. You got to, it's up to, otherwise you got to, if you don't make him do, he ain't going to do.
Well, I know that, you know. Because I believe, like I'm telling you.
I know how brother feels when he gets all emotionally involved in something he thinks he's going to get.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know, you promising somebody something and they depending on you to do it, they need it, and they sitting there waiting on it to come in, and then you come up with empty hands. I come up with empty hands.
Right. Well, this is what I'm trying to tell you. This is why I say unite with me. Within 6 weeks.
I'm united with you already.
Yeah, I'm saying, when I was talking about, we got to get together on the masses. You understand? First there's going to be some political involvement from other people once they notice what's going on. Because they're going to, you know, during elections, they're going to want to get in on it.
Mm-hmm.
But basically what we've got to work with is the fact that once we get together and we formulate a program,
right?
You see what I'm saying? We don't tell the people, yeah, well, we've got a program, we're going to get some money. You see what I'm saying? You don't deceive them. You tell them how it is. We have a program that we're going to try to get funded.
Right.
And the only way we want it funded, is so that we manipulate the funds.
Right, then we have our own program, buddy.
This is the whole deal. Now, when we get the program, then we go from there. And what I'm saying by go from there, we have personal connection. Right. And as people, we have power and can put pressure on connection and make them work. You see what I'm saying?
I know about that, you know.
But this is needed because the people really, with the need, can apply the pressure.
And that's what the argument is about in this summer of 1966. Who manipulates the money, who runs the program, who puts on the pressures. But the frustrations and the aspirations of these young men are by no means limited to the poverty program. They and thousands of other young militants are telling the urban poor, forget City Hall and its lousy paternalistic half measures. Come with us. Let us organize you. And then together we'll tell the power structure what we want, and we'll get it. We'll start with the poverty program, and we'll go on from there. Whether this can happen, whether it's all that simple, is quite another question. As we said at the beginning of this program, only 1/6 of our population are poor. Not all of them are urban poor. And some can't be organized. They're too young or too old or simply indifferent. So the militant leaders are, in effect, directing their pitch at a small minority of a minority, less than 10% of our population. In the South, in the struggle for civil rights, a minority did win its battle, but it won because it was able to enlist outside support, including, eventually, most members of the Congress of the United States. It was helped in getting support by the nature of its opposition, those white Southern leaders who brandished cattle prods and fire hoses and police dogs in an effort to hold back the inevitable. In the North, on the war on poverty, the opposition is not so identifiable. Nobody is for poverty. Large cities tend to have liberal mayors and city councils. So those who propose to overthrow the power structure merely by organizing the small, poor minority have their work cut out for them. But the ferment is there, whatever its ultimate result. You can feel it in every ghetto from Baltimore to Oakland. You could feel it at the recent White House Conference on Civil Rights. In some cities, it has delayed or damaged the poverty program. In some cities, it has virtually wrecked it. And its ramifications extend far beyond the war on poverty. This ferment will be the subject of another NET program called The Cities and the Poor Part 2, 1 week from tonight. Good evening.
I don't care what you do, don't care what you say. Everybody black and white, entitled to a decent place to stay, got to go on the rent strike. Got to end these blues.
The songs Burn, Baby, Burn and Rent Strike Blues were composed and sung by Jimmy Collier. 1 week from tonight, the National Educational Television Network will present Part 2 of The Cities and the Poor.
Landlord won't fix my building. I can't stand it anymore. Going on a rent strike. Got to end these blues.
This is NET,